Relationships are everything. That's been the resounding theme throughout every episode of this podcast, from developing strategic brand partnerships to working with brilliant influencers. Every guest has stressed how important it is to develop key relationships. What they haven't said, though, is how important personal branding is to that endeavor. Whether you're a seasoned marketing executive or an up and coming B2B influencer, personal branding is essential for establishing critical connections online. We all know LinkedIn is the network to focus on and that we need to show up regularly. But what does that mean exactly? How do we create content and activity that builds community and grows our network? That's what we're covering in today's episode of Partnership Unpacked. This is Partnership Unpacked, your go-to guide to growing your business through partnerships quickly. I'm your host, Mike Alton, and each episode unpacks the winning strategies and latest trends from influencer marketing to brand partnerships and ideas that you can apply to your own business to grow exponentially. And now, the rest of today's episode. Welcome back to Partnership Unpacked, where I selfishly use this time to pick the brains of experts at strategic partnerships, channel programs, affiliates, influencer marketing, and relationship building. Oh, and you get to learn too. Subscribe to learn how you can amplify your growth strategy with a solid takeaway every episode from partnership experts in the industry. Now, read any blog post about personal branding and you'll read trite advice like be authentic, start blogging, provide value. That's superficial at best. Because you and I are busy, goal-driven professionals. We want advice that's tactical and strategically relevant to us as marketing and partnership professionals. That's exactly what our guest today, Bob Cargill, is going to talk to us about. Bob has worked for hundreds of clients over the years when he wasn't leading the American Marketing Association of Boston or the New England Direct Marketing Association, where, by the way, he delivered award-winning content about LinkedIn. He's a writer, a podcaster, a YouTuber, an adjunct professor, a social media consultant, and a speaker. And that's why it should come as no surprise that his book is titled 20 Jobs, 20 Lessons, A Long, Strange Career in Marketing from Junk Mail to Social Media. We'll have a link to the book in the show notes, but even better, we've got Bob here in the studio so we can pick his brain. Hey, Bob, welcome to the show.
Mike, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here today.
My pleasure. Now, talk to us about your journey. Why do you think your career in marketing has been so strange?
So strange might be a strange word and an extreme word. You could say unique, you could say different, little out of the box, but I've been around in the industry. I have touched 5 different decades, believe it or not, in marketing, starting in 1983. Did my career start, and that was before the internet. So I've seen so much, and I have worked at so many different jobs, and I've kept up with the trends. I mean, when I was writing direct mail, then email, and then when the internet came along, I embraced social media. I have tried to stay on top of tools, technologies, as you mentioned, tactics, strategies, you name it, in order to keep on the forefront of what was working effectively in the industry of marketing. So again, strange might be a strong word, but I think unique because of how long I've been in business and how many different jobs I've had.
I couldn't agree more. I've seen your progression. I've seen how you've come out of direct marketing and that sort of thing, which I don't see a lot of people go from that into digital marketing, at least not successfully. And I can personally attest to the way that you're embracing social media today. I see your vertical videos and those kinds of things, which is very on point today. So when I say personal branding, what does that mean to you?
Mike, it means not just being out there on social media or being known, if you will. It's also thought leadership. It's also writing content that's timely and relevant to your industry colleagues. So it's what people say you are as an individual. It's a combination. We say personal branding, but obviously it's a lot about you as a professional, but not to get trite or superficial, but it's you as an authentic human being as well. So it is being vulnerable. It is sharing a little bit about who you are, again, as a human being. That could be your hobbies, your interests, what you do on the weekend occasionally, because You have to earn people's trust, whether you're a business or brand, corporate, I'm saying, or an individual brand, human being. You have to earn people's trust. People don't like advertising. People don't like marketing. That's what all the statistics say. So we have to, as marketers, find a way to sell without marketing so obtrusively, so in an interruptive fashion. We have to be part of the conversations. We have to be part of the communities, ideally leading those communities, but we have to be reputable personal brands. And the companies that consumers are buying from should be putting faces on their brands as well. So that is one way of how I would describe, or a few ways, how I would describe a strong, solid personal brand.
I love how much you mentioned the human aspect of that personal brand, both from a corporate and a personal perspective. I mean, a lot of people who know me, they know that I love Star Wars. They can see it in the background, they see it come up in my content from time to time, maybe every day. That's something I decided years ago. Out of all the things that I could talk about me personally, Star Wars was going to be the one thing that I talk about on a regular basis. But I wonder, as you're talking about and thinking about this need to share things about us personally, do you have a sense for how much of that should balance against work? In other words, I'm an
Yeah.
individual, I'm sharing to social media. How much of it should be really personal versus professional?
Yeah, so I was teaching earlier this week at a university in Boston, guest speaker on social media. So perfect question, perfect timing. I have a pie chart. I was saying to these students, your personal brand, and they're early in their journeys, of course. So great timing in terms of their lives, when and how to define their own personal brands. Number one, you're a persona. It's like when we take a business and do a marketing plan, we're looking at ourselves and thinking, how do we market ourselves? Now, again, genuine, authentic, honest, transparent, etc. We're not making all of this up. We're being ourselves. But I said, ideally, there's two, three, four different things that you want to share about yourself in addition to who you are as a professional. In that pie chart, I had approximately 50% of the content you share should be about you as a human being. Okay. I also said some third party content. So I might share an Agora Pulse blog post or Mike Alton blog post from some of the different places that you write your outstanding content. And then a good portion of it, but not maybe more than a quarter of it or a third of it, is my own content. And some of that of my own content is a little bit promotional. But again, ideally, you're earning trust, you're building a reputation. People are over time looking at you as a thought leader. So when it does come time for you to sell, offer something to your audience, they're more likely to buy from you because they trust you and they actually like you, which is ideal.
100%. That know, like, and trust is so important. So we're talking about sharing content, our own content, other people's content, personal content, professional content to social media. Now, our audience is marketing executives and partnership leaders. Would you agree that LinkedIn should be their primary social network? And if so, which others should they consider and why?
Yeah, not a question, LinkedIn. It's the professional network. I take pride in saying, and in my book, I say this, I was one of the first 1 million to join LinkedIn. And I think they're well over 800 million members now on LinkedIn. That number may be much higher. I'm not sure. But yeah, be present on LinkedIn and don't just have a presence there, meaning static presence, share content, create content, document your professional journey. But in addition to LinkedIn, listen, I also want to say, let's not forget the importance of in real life, IRL. So you're going
Mm,
to events, you're going to conference, ideally you're speaking at these events, then you're present currently on LinkedIn. But listen, I believe strongly in Twitter. I believe strongly in video. So short form video, YouTube absolutely is my strong feeling because video is the next best thing to being there in person. I feel people can see you, they can hear you, they get to know you really, really well. And something I learned from Mark Schaefer, they form parasocial relationships with you. So if they don't know you, haven't met you in person, they still feel like they know you because they've seen you time and time again. So frankly, I encourage people, time permitting, being reasonable about this, try all the social channels. then focus on where your audience is, where you see your content resonating the most.
A spot on advice about the networks. And I love that you mentioned the importance and the impact of video. Because right now, those of you who are listening to me, you're hearing my voice, you're hearing the tone, you're hearing the tenor, you're feeling a little bit more of a connection to me right now than you would if you were reading my content. And if you were watching me on video, we'd have the added benefit of me making eye contact with you. It's not two-way because I can't see you, the listener, or the viewer. But if you can see me, you can see my eyes, you can see my facial expressions, my body language, and that passes so much more information to our brains that it, like you were saying, Bob, creates a much stronger connection and a relationship. And to trump it all is in-person events. And I'm a strong proponent of that. I'm traveling every single month to events. We're hosting events on behalf of Agorapulse. I'm hosting VIP marketers and influencers in different areas. I'll be in Boston later this year and can't wait to hopefully see you in person, Bob, because that's where tremendous strides and tremendous progress take place in the building of those personal relationships, and all that, like you said, goes towards personal brand, right?
If I may interject, I
Yeah.
mean, you and I right now, we're providing content that ideally is of interest to our audience. We are also continuing to solidify our personal brands by sharing openly, frankly, by me answering your questions extemporaneously. That's displaying vulnerability. And I'm being very honest. And especially when I say something like that, this isn't always that easy. It's not that easy for busy executives. The more successful they are, where do you find the time? You're risking perhaps making a mistake, saying something you didn't mean to say. But that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you gain the most traction in terms of building relationships, because people say, wow, that individual's really being honest. That individual's really putting him or herself out there. I like that. And that person's probably more likely to be trusted when it comes time to doing business with him or her.
Brilliant, brilliant observation. Now, I know many of the folks listening, when they hear a term like branding, they might cringe because it's so ephemeral and so immeasurable. Where would you begin to measure the success of personal branding efforts?
Well, for myself, personally speaking, there's not a question. It has carried me throughout my career. And frankly, that's before the internet. I went to events, have always gone to events regularly. And yeah, you had to work harder before the internet. You had to go to those events. You had to write letters. I remember when, and yeah, I've been around this long. I remember when the internet came. Yeah, and when the internet came around, I got an AOL email address, and it was like, wow, this is great. I can now stay in touch with even more people. And again, when I started my blog in 2004, that's when things really took off. But your question, people cringe that how do you measure branding, et cetera? It leads to opportunities, and it's an indirect general measurement. But you see, if you're a commercial brand, you see sales increase, you see positive sentiment, and there are ways to measure that on social media. You see increased positive word of mouth. So back to when I was saying the old days and up till now, I get so many opportunities just because people see me. And I know that because they tell me that. Any company or any individual can measure that. You just got to keep your eyes and ears open for how people are saying they found you, why they buy from you. And it's daily when I'm out in public that I hear, oh, I saw your video, or oh, I hear what you say, or oh, I saw you talking to so and so, Mike Alton on his podcast. So you can measure it. And I have spent a lot of my career trying to convince upper management and clients that, hey, you can measure this. You just got to try it, and you got to stick to it. You got to be very persistent in your branding.
Couldn't agree more. We're talking with Bob Cargill about personal branding. We're just talking about how to measure the success of branding efforts. Now, here to talk to us about how to measure the success and business impact of social media is Daryl Prale, our CMO at Agorapulse.
It's the Arc de Triomphe. Can you imagine if you're in charge, if you're the CMO of Marketing Paris? What are your main channels? Wow, there's the Arc de Triomphe, there's the Eiffel Tower, there's the Louvre. Those are your channels you're going to use to drive tourism dollars in. Okay, now, but you're not the CMO of Paris. In fact, you're the CMO of your company. product, service. So what are your main channels? Well, I'm going to guess there are things like pay-per-click, maybe trade shows, events, maybe content. Those are all pretty predictable, right? Let me ask you this question. Are you treating social media as a main channel? By the way, only 1.8% of you today measure social media and can prove an ROI in that investment. HubSpot and Gartner say social media is the #1 channel to invest in this year. Are you doing it? If not, I can tell you why. You're not doing it because you don't have the tools, you don't have the mentality, and that's okay. We've got you covered. You change the mentality, we'll give you the tools. WordPulse tracks all the ROI for you. One place to manage all your social media activity, your #1 channel. Change your success. Treat social media as a channel, one CMO to another. My name is Daryl. I'm with WordPulse. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, Bob, let's get into some actionable advice. What should a marketing executive or a partnership leader's first step be in establishing a personal brand? And then what's next?
Good question, and it could be a long answer. So cut me off if I go on too long. It's a combination of things. I mean, clearly establish that presence on social media and make sure your channels, your platforms are up to date and active. And so first step, establish that presence. And I don't mean just on LinkedIn, but absolutely on LinkedIn. The next step, and this is more conditioning, because I've talked to many executives, many clients, many students. You have to condition yourself to do this on a, frankly, daily basis, concurrently with everything else you do. So I mentioned something Mark Schaefer said earlier, parasocial relationships, and how he also says the most human company wins. I love things that Mark Schaefer says. Here's a Gary V thing, Gary Vaynerchuk. He says, document, don't create, something like that. And I couldn't agree more with him. So I tell busy people, document your journey, document your activities, have someone filming you, film yourself, record yourself, dictate your notes with AI tools today. It's easier than ever, and put it out there. So there is a way to keep your presence. I say be conspicuous in your presence. Keep your presence consistent and prevalent and predominant as much as possible. It's not for everybody, but if you do that, I am so confident you will see results over time. You can't give up quickly. You got to stick with it.
Now, the folks here in this audience, they're for the most part full-time professionals, right? So we're telling them they got to work their job. And then we're also telling them, on top of that, to maintain your personal brand, you've got to be active on social media regularly, even if that's not your actual job. What tips do you have that might help them kind of balance the fact that they need to carve out time every day, every other day? How can they streamline that? How can we help them?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get very tactical, I mean, they can block time on their calendar, half an hour a day, an hour a day. When I was in the full-time corporate world, I'm now on my own in teaching and consulting and speaking, et cetera. But when I was in the full-time corporate world, working for clients, sure, it wasn't as easy, but I could do it at lunch. I could do it in the morning. I could do it at the end of the day. I could do it at during a coffee break. I would actually go out to lunch, or use my lunch, should I say, not go out to lunch, go out during lunch on my own. When I'm trying to think of Periscope, when they had the live.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I used to walk down the street just doing videos and put them up there. That would help my personal brand. So carve out time. Maybe it's a content calendar. Don't want to get too complicated for busy people, but I'm going to write a blog post on Monday night and share that, and maybe record a video Friday during lunch. You just have to condition yourself to make it part of your day. And I will admit, social media will add time to your day. I wrote a blog post years ago titled Sleepless on Social Media, or Sleepless in Social Media. Yeah, takeoff on that movie, Sleepless in Seattle. I paraphrased the title of that movie. It's going to add hours to your day, but it's going to pay off. I mean, that's frankly life, if you will. Work is work. But over time, you will be able to simplify it. You will be able to streamline it. I love doing it day in and day out. And it's just integrated with everything else I do.
Love that. And a couple tips. First is that you can batch create
Yeah.
content. So you can spend a Saturday afternoon coming up with posts and memes and writing blog content and that sort of thing. And you can use a tool like Agorapulse to schedule that out over time. So you don't necessarily need to be logged into every single network every single day. There are tools and processes that you can implement to help manage that so that if you're going to be traveling or you got a busy day at events or meetings, that sort of thing, you don't have to be online in those times. And the other thing you can do is start with creating long form content like we're doing here today, right, Bob? And then you can splice this up into much shorter pieces of content that can be shared to social media, converted into blog posts, converted into roundups. This is episode, I don't know, 34, 35, something like that for me. I can go back to a dozen of my past blog post episodes and pull out excerpts. Gosh, I can't talk. I can pull out excerpts and share those in a new post or a new form of content or splice together a couple different pieces of video and create a new piece of video content. So there's lots of shortcuts we can use, right, to save
Yeah.
that time.
Yeah, you mentioned some, Mike, I overlooked and think of as the batch create. I'm
Mhm.
always recording videos, and I have a queue that right now I probably have weeks, if not months worth of video that I need to get out there. I need to edit and caption and maybe put music to. I am always recording. So then the excerpts, as you said, and then repurposing. I don't think either of us have mentioned that yet. You can use your content not just once and not just in one place. So in half an hour video, like we're recording here today, could be sliced and diced into excerpts, put in different channels. Hey, maybe 6 months from now, shared in a different way, in a different place, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. Love it. Now, you mentioned AI. We'd be remiss if we didn't do a little bit deeper dive into AI, particularly today with everything going on. How do you see artificial intelligence helping personal branding efforts like these? And this could be today or maybe down the road in the future, you might envision some ways that AI can help.
AI can help in so many ways, and I encourage people not to be afraid of it. In fact, my personal commitment this summer, I teach an awful lot at universities in Boston. I have a little downtime, just a little this summer, and I am committed to learning and using AI more because I have to teach it. I have to start integrating it into my curriculum. So, and I did, by the way, I have Chat GPT on my phone. I have my own free account. And the other day I used it, I'll admit, for a prompt on a motivational video because I do a lot of motivational videos and inspirational videos. And I put it in, give me some ideas, blah, blah, blah. I got a prompt. I got a couple words that I use kind of to catapult me into like a 30-second, 60-second riff on motivation. So there's an idea right there. There's also apps out there, and I am using one or two or three of them that, hey, clearly they're AI little video templates that you can insert yourself into. In other words, you're the recording, but it might be their words, it might be their music. It helps you in a big way get on, for instance, like short videos on YouTube Shorts, or frankly, TikTok. I have a TikTok account. AI's all over TikTok. So don't be afraid of it. Use it, but clearly use it ethically. And there are a lot of disclosures and regulations and maybe laws down the road in terms of copyright, et cetera, that we do have to be very, very mindful of.
Terrific advice. Using AI to generate ideas, not being afraid of it. One thing I'll add is there's an app that I've been using called Pi. That's an AI tool, and it's designed to have a conversation with you. And in this particular instance, I would recommend using an app like Pi to talk about who your target audience is. You can have an entire conversation with the artificial intelligence about who you want to talk to, the pain points they're experiencing, the issues that they're having, what are they interested in learning that you can be talking about and weaving into your stories as lessons as you're doing your walks and your videos, your blog posts, or your podcast, or whatever it is that you're going to do. So love that, Bob. I've just got one more question for you, and it's my favorite question. I always say this to the end because it's so important to me. But how important have relationships been to you in your career?
Absolutely critical. I tell my students that's probably one of the biggest reasons for my success, if you will, relatively speaking, and anybody's success, relatively speaking. Again, even back before the internet, in fact, back before the internet, it was especially important and harder to form those relationships. But I would go to networking events and seek out people that I could tell were frankly important, that might be able to help me. And with social media, yeah, that's even easier, I think, to form those relationships. But it's everything. And it's the social in social media and in real life. Important. It's what you know, yes. But again, I tell my students, you're all going to come out of here with similar degrees, similar knowledge. So couple that with who you know. So use social media to form relationships. I know so many people like yourself, Mike, who I may not have met in person, but they are friends, they are colleagues. They can help me, and I love to help them. So relationships are critical, key, and again, probably why I was able to write this book, 20 Jobs, 20 Lessons, because all the different jobs I got was because I knew people, and those jobs were almost put in front of me. I didn't necessarily have to look for them, and temptation, I couldn't resist. I was always saying, yes, I'll do that. So relationships are everything.
What a great bookend to this episode. Thank you, Bob. I couldn't agree more. Use social media to create those connections. Use it for social networking, and so many opportunities will open and pave the way for you. Bob, where can people connect with you, find you if they want to learn more from you?
Thanks, Mike. I mean, anywhere on social media. I do have a website, a blog that I started in 2004. That's a long time ago, almost 20-year anniversary. It's thebobcargill.com. And I'm on every social channel. Yes, even TikTok. In most cases, just Bob Cargill. Again, the Bob Cargill is my website. I would love to connect with people. I will connect back. I love to share third-party content. And so I'm always looking for good blog posts, good podcasts to listen to, and I share them all the time. So please reach out, anybody and everybody. Glad to connect. Very happy to help if I can.
Fantastic. That's all we've got for today, friends. Just a quick reminder, you'll find all the show notes, the full transcripts, and the embedded players on the socialmediahat.com. And of course, we're on all of your favorite podcast networks. So please find us, subscribe, and leave us a review. We'd love to know what you think. Until next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Partnership Unpacked, hosted by Mike Alton and powered by AgoraPulse, the #1 rated social media management solution, which you can learn more about at agorapulse.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player. Be sure to leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us. And if you want to be part of our audience during live broadcasts, take a look at our calendar at agorapulse.com/calendar. Until next time.